Look like it. Okay. So in the couple of months when I was looking at people that I consider the cognitive empathy folks who are writing about cognitive empathy and are just about the thoughts, I read that a lot of them are talking about emotions as well, and the affective and cognitive empathy is very blend together. So the the biggest differentiation that I've seen between affective and cognitive or imaginative empathy is that the imaginative empathy or cognitive empathy is about the any process is about understanding and analyzing and predicting. So if you're talking about role playing, if you're talking about the standing person, when you talking that this person, your example of you're doing like a family whatever reenactment and some the mediator,
Mediation.
yeah, mediation, and the mediator come and enact your father because for some reason he chooses not to.
Yes.
So he's getting into the role play, as you said, the feeling, the thoughts. He predicts like how, according to the little information that this mediator has on your father, he's acting upon that, doing perspective taking and all of that. And then you said this person is saying, "Oh, it's exactly like my father," and so so it has this effective part, but it's again, so calling it cognitive empathy, imaginative empathy doesn't matter to me, but it's like the whole concept. While effective empathy is more, do you feel what the other people person is feeling? And what I'm reading, most of it is all connecting to suffer and pain mostly. And it's really interesting, the effective empathy research. There's not a lot of effective empathy that I found that were very positive.
Mm-hmm.
And that just for a second to get back to Bloom, I think that's where it comes from, his kind of criticism that, he is all about cognitive empathy, but it's the effective empathy that it's really problematic. And I think it's because most of the things that are written about, the ability to feel pain, and then you have the empathic fatigue of like compassionate fatigue of like you feel this pain all the time, and then you're burnout of like feeling it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's something that I didn't like in her article that she divided. Well, I think it should be together because I don't think she says that it's very difficult to separate, and I wouldn't separate those. But
The
it doesn't,
cognitive and
yeah.
effective.
But it doesn't matter her argument. I mean, it's still interesting.
Yeah,
So,
I when I talked to George Lakoff, he was talking about some of the research in terms of how the imaginative works. Like he really gets into the neural networks of different like how the brain is actually working and is trying to explain empathy from that point of view. And he was talking about imagination is connected to the visual system that you actually can like you connect to these programs, these neural programs about vision that you
hmm
you see things into the future, and it actually connects to these. I don't know. It's like hard to explain, but I guess there was the part about how these networks are connected, like the visual system, and seeing the future and kind of putting yourself into that, and how it is all kind of connected with these neural with the neural patterns and so forth. So and how
what's his
those
name? Who was the person? George?
George Lakoff,
How do you spell his name?
Lakoff, I think. He was actually the person, one of the. Let me
Hmm.
bring that up because if you haven't seen his work, I
Some
would
moral
say.
politics. Don't think of an elephant. Yeah.
uh So putting that in the side there, that's a link. Um, on
Okay.
my site. So he was one of the early people who really talk about empathy and in well, he's a linguist, so he's
hmm
like Noam Chomsky. they have kind of like different views of language and linguistics, and he's also been very political, writing about empathy in the political terms of different worldviews of between progressives and conservatives and so forth. So, and I mean, he was one of the people that kind of inspired me about empathy too. When I was looking at empathy, I read his works.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also written a lot about Enlightenment reasoning and the new reasoning, because Enlightenment reasoning is almost like what I would say is the foundation of transactional empathy, because Enlightenment reasoning says that we're separate individual beings going for our own self-interest. And George is saying we need a new kind of like an empathic enlightenment reasoning. And then because all the premises, and he goes through all the premises of enlightenment reasoning, it was and shows how each of the premises is inaccurate. For example, with Descartes, I think, therefore I am, and it's like, it's almost like reasoning in that worldview it's like beyond the body. It's almost like God, in the sense it's almost like a supernatural force, that it's not embodied, whereas his work is saying reason is an embodied process, because we think with our brains and we reason with our brains, so it's part of physical neural structure. So anyway, it's kind of and empathy is core, because empathy shows how that separation is not accurate, that we're actually empathizing with each other and connecting with each other on an ongoing basis, and it kind of dispels the idea that we're just like these autonomous kind of beings.
So he was like criticizing Descartes of taking the reason outside of the body and the soul and like the emotions, and saying also adding a social component to it, saying that we are part of, like, since the brain is part of our body, so everything is connected to our body and our soul and our emotions, and also the social interaction, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, that it's that reason is embodied. It's not out of the body, that we think with our brain and our body, basically. If you read through that, it had a heck of a lot of material, from him.
Yeah, I've seen the page. Yeah, it's whoa.
Yeah. Well, you can kind of get down to kind of the essence of it. And he kind of breaks it into also the I mean, there's different part. He's got he talks a lot. He wrote about that we think with metaphor, that that we're using metaphor is kind of like a building block of our thinking, and he goes into how every philosopher starts with some form of a metaphor and then kind of builds on that metaphor, builds their whole process on that metaphor. And he talks about Enlightenment reasoning, and what he's really is a new form, or the more current reasoning. I don't know what the term would be for it, but almost like an empathic reason, that Enlightenment reasoning, all the premises are inaccurate, and he goes through and kind of explains that. And and then he also talks about conservatives having one model, and then progressives having another model of kind of the nurturing parent versus the strict father. So anyway, he's quite influential here in the progressive world, philosophical world.
Did Jeff join us?
Yeah, he was saying he was having some computer problems, so maybe.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, you there?
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
Hey.
Uh, Sorry, I had problems connecting.
Nice
Well,
meeting
glad
you.
you're here.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, so Jeff and I have been working together for some time now. We did a workshop on empathy at the church. The first, so he and his friend Jeremy kind of hosted the design part of it, and then Jeff and I have been part of the empathy team doing doing that empathic design course, or that empathy, that design course, and kind of been working together.
Cool.
And Jonathan is working. What do you want to? You guys want to just share a little bit about yourselves, instead of me being the mediator here?
Yeah, I'm now a PhD student. I'm doing research about how to bring empathy into a school, and especially I'm specializing in digital media. So the idea is how to use digital media to enhance empathy.
That sounds like a really interesting research. I work in a school setting. Um, I work for an after-school program right now called Compassionate Leaders in Berkeley High School. So a lot of the curriculum has elements of like empathy and compassion, and so yeah, that sounds really interesting to me.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I graduated a year ago from UC Berkeley, and then I've just been sticking around, trying to find out what I want to do, and then I kind of just ran into Edwin, and then I kind of got sucked into his empathy.
I suck people in. It's the empathy sucker.
That's great.
Let's suck in the whole world.
Awesome. So what's on our agenda today?
Well, where are we with the? I guess we could put in the agenda. I got. Let's see. I was thinking we could just work at page 3. No, page 4. Discussion on designing the workshop. How might we design an empathy conference and workshop?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Is there any agenda items? I think we had a transformational empathy discussion.
Yeah.
And then it was the purpose. What was the purpose discussion?
Mm-hmm.
And others?
Edwin, can you post the link on the chat?
Yeah, right. Here it is.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I think so. I mean, that will be enough, I think, for an hour, and then we can, at the end, kind of thinking about next steps, so how to start working on the actual design and kind of planning, or next steps. Yeah.
Okay, so was there anything else, Jeff? Do you have any?
No, I think that's good. I think this will take the whole meeting probably.
Okay. Okay, transformational empathy discussion. Somehow we got into this discussion, I guess because it was the nature of the workshop, is we wanted it to be transformational versus transactional, and so we're looking at that article. Any thoughts about that?
So what was the most important for me from this article, and Jeff, you know which article we're talking about?
No, familiar.
Okay, so it's an article of now she's a doctor, that she is looking at mediation, and she wrote an article in '99, so we're talking like 15 years ago, um, using empathy as a concept for mediation and training mediators. And she was arguing that in order to do an effective mediation, you need to have the theory and the practice combined together. You cannot ignore each one of them. So just writing about theory without the practice is not useful, but also practicing with ignoring the theory or the assumption of people is also unuseful. So she was trying to combine them, and she used two theory that people criticize as, why are you putting it as dividing it as two different concepts? But she was arguing that it has a big difference in the assumption. And Edwin and I were talking about what's the purpose of this workshop, and Edwin suggested this article that I was not aware of, because we're talking about, are people coming to this workshop or this conference for personal reasons, or they're coming to help create something in like social kind of purposes?
Mm.
And that raised to Edwin saying, oh, wait a minute, I read this article and she has a very interesting argument exactly about that. And that's why he sent me this article to read and to talk about it. So the framework of the article is about mediation. So we'll put that aside for a second. But in general, what she's claiming is that there are two different kind of framework. If you go to the document at the end, the last page of the document, the Google Doc,
Page 6.
I really just cut some stuff. So let's wait with the 1, 2, 3. I'll get to that in a second. But if you go to this chart, the figure kind of saying about empathy. So she's saying that she's ignoring the effective empathy and she's just looking at cognitive empathy, which Edwin called imaginative empathy.
Okay.
And so down you can see that she's looking at those two frameworks. One is individualist worldview and one is relational worldview. And so what she's claiming is that people who are, she's talking about the mediators and the people who are coming to the mediation. If they're coming from an individualist worldview, they'll think about their own personal individual gain. And if they're coming from a relational worldview, they'll come for a more kind of social bonding, kind of interrelational kind of point of view. So I talked a lot.
That was really great.
Summarized.
Yeah, that was really helpful summary.
Okay. So
Jeff and I have talked about this topic a fair bit before too. So I don't know if you looked at the article before, but we have talked about transformation, transactional and transformational empathy, and so it is. I mean, I could just add. So having these different world views affects the way you structure the mediation, for example. And I see this as transferable, not just to mediation, but to for example, human-centered design as well. That you can come from an individualistic worldview, and then empathy is this tool that you use in design to kind of study people, what it is that they're needing, and you have sort of this sense of distance from them, and you're kind of designing for them. And then there's a spectrum too of I would say co-design, where people, you're really kind of facilitating the connection between all people, all the participants, so that they work together to design something. So I see this this framework kind of in a lot of different fields too.
Okay, I just wrote I summarized what you just said because I think it's crucial to that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Is it
yeah.
does it have to be kind of a binary, as in
No.
like people come in with either, because for me it seems like I do want to gain something personally out of, you know, if I were to go to a conference or workshop, but then at the same time I'm also really interested in other people's worldviews and perspectives and connecting to that. So it seems like there's kind of a mix.
You tackle exactly my thoughts, because when I was reading it, I was really getting annoyed, and that was part of the thing that I wanted to start the conversation. So thank you, Jeff, for getting us back to it. So I felt very uncomfortable when she was describing the individualistic approach, because she was kind of bashing the individualistic approach, and when I was reading it, I said, wait a minute, but people are not just coming for altruistic reasons. As you said, Jeff, it's also I want to gain something out of it. So I think there is a merit to individualistic approach and to individual needs. It doesn't mean that you don't have the relational and the thinking about society, but it doesn't need to be a dichotomy. She is saying that there are people who are saying why, in the beginning of the article she starts with that, saying people are saying there's no dichotomy, it's part of it, but then she gets into the argument, I didn't get it exactly, why she wants to put it in that sense. And the only last thing that I want to say about it is that that's why I said it's about mediation, and she is talking specifically about the role of the mediator. What is the mediator approach? Does the mediator, so the way she framed it is, if the mediator is in the individualistic approach, the mediator will look at satisfying each of the individual's needs. And that's the role of the mediation. If the mediator is coming from a relational approach, he will work on getting the two sides to talk to each other and collaborate. So that's why she wanted to do this distinguished kind of thing. But as we want to do a workshop and foster empathy, we don't need to do it in a kind of either one. We can combine, and that's what I try to do in the top of the page 6. You see those 4 process that I was thinking of, that I think that in the beginning of the workshop conference we should do that, because I think what I did, I combined her criticism and her recommendation that it will be individualistic and relational. And that's what I was thinking, that to start, people are coming first, I think, that's my assumption, from individualistic reasons. And then I was thinking, as we're walking them through, we can add to it, not saying you shouldn't have your personal needs, but add to it also a social and kind of collaborative component to it. Edwin, what?
Yeah. There's in terms of the mediation, something that comes to mind is you can have the mediator be the person who's like mediating these two individuals, and you're kind of like separate. And I'm seeing there's kind of like this spectrum of approaches. And on, for example, restorative empathy circles, or the restorative circles that it's kind of based on by Dominic Barter, is that the mediator is actually part of the circle. So it's like like we did our restorative empathy set. I don't think you saw. I don't know if you didn't take part in that one. But it's like we had a conflict, but everybody is part. Everybody is a part of the relationship. And the mediator speaks. I mean, they have like a little extra role to kind of hold the space in an empathic space, but they are also part of the community. And I see the same. I see that same sense that there's in design, that there's a sense that the designer is part of the community. And I keep hearing these different stories about people, you know, really trying to bring the community together and create this co-design, and that's kind of the co-design process. So that's the part I kind of wanted to just mention that I see is that co-mediation, co-design, and the other part about the transformational is like I told the story about the mediation in my family, right? That so here's the two family members are pissed off at each other. I could just sit back and just say, okay, the issue is where gifts will be kept and stored and who's responsible for the gifts. But in holding the whole space for this empathic space, I was part of it. People were attacking me. You know, I was like, you know, part of it, and I was empathizing with them. So I was part of that empathy circle. And then we kept going, but I was holding that transformational space, you know, keep holding that space. And the dialogue kept going to going kind of deeper into the experience, where it became the shared experience. The real issue was a sense of belonging. My sister-in-law didn't feel like she had a sense of belonging to the family. So it kind of, we surfaced that shared sense of, oh, belonging. And then it was like my father, you know, he was like, you know, belonging's important to me too. And then it became a dialogue about belonging and like this shared sense of belonging, the importance of belonging. I value belonging, you value belonging. And so the issue kind of went from where the gifts go to this deeper shared value, or kind of a shared humanity. And then at the end, it was like, oh, we all share belonging, you belong, and so forth. And the whole initial issue wasn't even an issue anymore. Like the whole thing about where gifts were stored and all that wasn't even the issue. It was like the deeper transformation that happens. That's kind of how I'm seeing it, as like a real tangible example.
So if you go to what I wrote, page 9, you see those 4 things that I wrote.
Yeah.
Are you there? Yeah. Jeff, I see
you. Is a tool
Edwin, I don't see you. Edwin, where are you?
Page 9.
Yeah. So if I'm gonna take your example, Edwin, that you just said.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay. So it's exactly what I thought that should be the process of. I don't know if it should be the first. So that's something that we need to talk about. If it should be like the first exercise that should have those 4 stages, or it should be the process of the whole day. But in general, what I was saying is, you know, outlining assumption about human beings, conflict, negotiation, communication, some kind of introductory kind of thing that people lay out their own kind of place, where they're coming from, why they're coming from this place. And then the second thing is what Edwin, you were saying, uncover the hidden interest, which is maybe not interest,
but a second bit of background noise. I think it might be coming from you, Jeff.
Oh yeah, I can turn that off. Yeah.
Or just mute while you're. Thanks. Sorry.
So uncover hidden interest, or maybe feelings, which is what you said, the sense of belonging, that actually So if the first one would be, I disagree where the gift should be stored, and I think that your mother-in-law is like wrong, and I think your sister-in-law is wrong, and you know, blah blah blah. And then on the second one, it would be, well, actually, the whole thing is about sense of belonging and uncovering it, and then take it to what you did then, which is, okay, so how do you want to be understood? How would you want to be seen? And then that's where you said that your father stepped in and kind of said, oh, I have also the sense of belonging, and I, you know, and that leads to the fourth thing, which is the common ground share meaning, which is
Yeah.
the appreciation of the differences and thinking about. And I think having this process going through it, that would lead to what you initially talked about 2 weeks ago about you want people to feel committed to a sense of community, something to do together. So if I appreciate the differences, I understand why I'm coming to this workshop, what I want to gain from this workshop, but I'm also appreciating of why you want to come to this workshop, then it's a base to start and do some real work together.
So you're saying, well, initially I was hearing that people come with their self-interest too. That it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's people probably, a lot of them will be coming because they want their self-interest, and then you're just kind of conveying, mapping these steps into the story, and yeah, that's kind of, is that the.
Yep. Yeah,
And
exactly.
the common ground, sharing, accommodate, appreciate. I don't quite understand the appreciate the of differences. That isn't.
The differences. Oops.
Or difference. Accommodate the appreciation of difference.
Yeah. Again, I just kind of like took it's not even sentences, it's parts of what she was writing and kind of trying to make sense because she was going through a different path. But I think what I took from what she was saying is that, you know, we should acknowledge both, as Jeff was saying, because I really agree with what he's saying. I'm coming from my interest to the workshop, but it doesn't mean that I'm not coming for a sense of community and I'm ready to work for building a community, but I don't want also my personal needs to be devalued or ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready to hear, I'm ready to do things, but I want also to be appreciated and to met not all my needs, I guess, but some of them.
It also kind of reminds me of Edwin's framework of the 4 steps of empathy, and it starts in Edwin's framework. It starts with self-empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't have empathy for others unless you start with empathy for yourself. And I kind of see this initial part is about the participants gaining self-empathy.
Yep. And
But
so
also,
what is the 3 other steps?
I think it was self-empathy, then
Mirror empathy.
Yeah, and then imaginative empathy, and then creative empathy.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, Jeff, I cut you. What you were saying?
Oh, yeah, I was saying that I think for me, when I saw your other note on page 6 about where was it? Space to transform individual needs to common needs. For me, what comes to mind is that, like, the deeper I got into empathy, the more I started to realize that one of my biggest individual needs is to be able to connect really deeply with the people around me. But then if other people don't have self-empathy, then that kind of acts as an obstacle for us to be able to connect with each other. So then whether other people have empathy becomes to kind of merge together with my individual needs. So then for me, it feels like the common needs of everyone and my needs kind of start to morph into one thing. And like the boundaries between them become really fuzzy to me. That's kind of what's on my mind right now.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's the sense of it's self-empathy. I actually become more my self-empathy actually deepens in the relationship as I get heard by others. I can actually see myself better. It's like I was feeling really depressed and kind of blocked, and then Jonathan, you did that gave me that empathic space for an hour, and it was actually I'm just sitting there talking, getting that reflection, and it really kind of helped kind of unblock me and kind of connect to deeper aspects of myself. So that's kind of, I think, what you're, if I understand it, Jeff, that you're seeing too, is that we actually connect more deeply to ourselves through being heard by others and through that relationship. Yeah, so kind of that's the merging there, the shared.
I think Jeff wanted to say something. You're muted.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with Edwin. That's kind of gets to the same thing that I wanted to say. But yeah, I'm eating it because there's like music playing here. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So, Jeff, what you're saying is that using the model that I put there now, so by people focusing in the beginning on self-empathy and understanding why they came to this workshop, deepening their like own self-awareness and mindfulness, they'll be more willing to share and to connect and then to move into the imaginative and creative empathy. Is that correct? That's what you said?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. So Edwin, do you want still to talk about the transformative and transactional empathy? Do you feel that there are still things that we need to talk about regarding that?
The only thing for me is I'm trying to really get more grounded in it. We don't have to go into it now. I've talked a bunch with Jeff about it, and I'm kind of looking for those stories, and like I feel like I've kind of got this understanding of it. There's something still, it's not as solid as
About
I
the
would like in general.
about the article or about the concept?
About the concept, so I feel there's still more growth around it. Needing more stories and being able to like explain it in an easier way to people.
Because again, I understand the article where it comes from because she's advocating for mediators to look at the relational point of view and to when, as you said, Edwin, to be part of the mediation and not to be excluded and kind of patronizing into
Yeah.
Edwin, what do you need? Jeff, what do you need? Let's talk. I'm gonna reveal your hidden motives, and then we're gonna talk, and you'll shake hands, and everything is great.
Yeah.
So she was advocating against that, but I don't think that the workshop or the conference is mediating, and we're not taking two opponents and trying to get them to talk. We're trying to get people who are interested in empathy to collaborate. So I think it's a bit different, and that's why I agree with Jeff that we need to combine those two things together, because people are coming for their individual needs, but also they want to connect. So I think it's not either or, but it's actually both together, and trying to show people that by meeting their individual needs, they can also reach a greater kind of thing. The sum of the parts is greater than or whatever, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, so that doing something together, it should be some kind of a balance between what the individual participants of the workshop are coming to get, and clarified from the beginning so that it will be really clear what each one of the person wants to get, and then work on doing something together, which is the transitional empathy that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a so that there's a space that where everyone, where their own self experience has a space to be shared, and that we're wanting to encourage everyone to be heard and seen and felt. It's not like a self-sacrifice, but we're actually wanting to really hear more deeply into everyone's experience and feel the full, have them be able to share their full experience and needs and whatever's coming up for them. So for that to be a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there, only then you can like move to a kind of collaboration, mediation, kind of like working together.
Yeah, there's something about the awareness of the shared space, I guess, is what I'm looking at. I see that feeling into myself, you know, with our empathy circles. I feel into myself, I feel into you, and then there's the shared space that we have. And there's one process I saw through the focusing. They say, you know, how am I doing? How are you doing? And then the question is, how is the space between us? So, and there's another person I know that kind of talks about that. For example, with nonviolent communication, I think it has a very transactional quality to it. So it's not very good at fostering like groups and communities. So he's even named, it's like given a name to the shared space. He calls it Fred. So it's like, here we are, the three of us. Well, how is Fred doing? Which is like, how is the space, you know, between us doing? How do you know, what's our experience? So anyway, there's something about that I'm kind of interested in too.
So if you look at page 9, you see where I am. Do you see my do you see my icon there on page 9?
Yeah, there it is.
So if I would put here, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not, you know.
Yeah. And it's an acronym for something, but it creates a space holder. It creates a name for the space, you know.
Because I think then that's gonna be the stage that will move from the individual into the common, from the transaction into the transitional. After doing the mirror empathy, it kind of raises also uncovered and feeling, and because of the motion, because you know you're doing something physically, and then you share, you talk about it, and then you feel much more safe to kind of, okay, so now let's talk about this space after you share things, intimate kind of things. Do you think? I mean, is that?
Yeah. So let me see. Let me correct that. So you're saying that that once you've shared intimate things, that then you have an awareness of the space between us. I mean, the shared space.
You're open to think about it because you shared something very intimate, very close, you felt heard, you know. So.
Well, it seems like there's always that space, but there's always kind of the relationship. You know, one thing that was coming to me, I wonder what it would be like to do imaginative empathy on the space. You know, in terms of doing an empathy circle, like I am the space, do a role playing. I don't know, maybe I'm getting too far afield here or something. But it's like in terms of imagining, like I am the space between us, and and then you start role-playing that, and then dialoguing from what you're feeling the space is, or I don't know. I feel kind of confused about that, but there's something in there that maybe I could get a reflection on that. Maybe that would help me to.
Wait a minute, I'm just writing what you're saying, and in a second I'm going to reflect on that. Unless, Jeff, you want to reflect.
Sure. So when you were saying that you wanted to do some kind of you wanted to create an awareness of the space and its relationship to empathy, so you were interested in doing some kind of an activity where you do imaginative empathy on the space, like you're empathizing with the space itself,
Yeah.
giving the space a name and asking how the space is doing, and seeing if there's any way to incorporate an element of that in the overall process of the.
It's more like just what in the three of us are relating here. It wasn't necessary for the workshop, but I'm thinking of as we're relating here, because we're kind of we have Fred here too with us, right? So it's about how, as we're relating here as three of us. I guess one thing I had thought of is kind of the words. Is that a pronoun, or like you're saying? Well, this is what I'm hearing you say. Is I wonder if there's a we in this, like we are experiencing. Instead of saying I or you, it's like a we. And I don't know if I want to get into this. I've sometimes I don't know. This is something that I've been thinking about, and it's just that when we say I, the structure is of an individual, whereas if we say, oh, we are feeling this, speaking from the experience, but it creates a sense of the shared experience. So the vocabulary, and this is not, I don't want to get into all this in the conference because this is like just too complicated, I think.
Not sure. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe not. Yeah, but I don't know. Does that make sense? I think I played with this before about the we, that you just speak from a we, because the words we're using is kind of framing our relationship, and if we're speaking from we, whatever experience is arising in we, oh yeah, we're all speaking from Fred is we, I guess.
Can I try to see?
Yeah.
You know, I'll try with a metaphor, not a metaphor, but kind of a like illustration to try to, it's coming back to when I was like filmmaker and when I'm teaching my students to make movies. I'm talking about those three circles. I think I talked to you about it, but anyway, there is the inner circle, which is the hero. Okay, what's going on with the hero, and that's like the main core. And then there is the second circle, which is the hero relationship with the people around the hero. And then there is the third circle, which is like the world, the space kind of thing. So I'm thinking we're talking about those three. Now we concentrate on only the two first circle. We talked about self-empathy, which is the core, and then we said let's do empathic listening, let's do imaginative empathy and creative empathy with the people around this person. But then, Edwin, you added the space, the kind of what's going on there, and kind of how those two circles in the beginning are relating in a broader kind of, there is like a space between them that we didn't talk before. And I heard you many times talking about this we feeling that connects the inner circle and the kind of the second circle. Does that figure kind of make sense?
So you're saying that there's a layer of circles. I mean, there's like the hero or the and that they have like their own. This is in movie making.
Yeah.
And then then there's that kind of like the next circle is the relationship of the hero to I didn't know who was it, the
Whatever,
participant.
the people, you know, the other actors or the other characters.
And then there's the larger, which is the whole, I guess, even the viewers of the
Yeah.
of the show. So there's like there's these larger relationships that are happening, this series of relationships, and you're wondering if that maps over into this idea of we.
So I don't know how much clear you can see. Is it clear?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I see it.
So you have the hero, and that would be the self-empathy, okay? And then the hero kind of relates to society, to people. In our conference, it will be the people in the place. And then you have the whole world. So let's exclude the world for a second. So I'm not talking about the third circle, but I think, Edwin, what you were talking about, you see, I kind of highlighted the outlines of the first circle here. You see that?
Uh-huh.
I think that's Fred. That's the we that you're talking about, this thing here. And I think you really tackled the issue that in order to move from the individual, my need, into something like a common and creating something, we need to address getting out of the comfort zone, getting out of this circle to the other circle by talking about this boundaries. And I think Fred is this boundaries, and I think it's very important to talk about it, because then people are aware, and they will be willing to step from here outside to here.
So you're saying that okay, that the inner is Fred, is the relationship. Oh no, it's the hero.
The hero, Fred, is only this outline, only this, you know, the circle itself. And I think you're right that we need to talk about the outline. So in order to do a process of getting the people from here or coming to the conference, getting them here or here, we need to talk about the boundaries, because it's like a wall now I'm thinking of. You see? It's like a circle, like a little village that is protected by the wall against the invaders. And if we want them to drop the walls and be willing to talk with other people, we need to talk about the wall itself. And Fred is this wall. Fred is this kind of shield, the individual shield, to kind of be open to something. Jeff, does that make sense?
I'm still a little bit confused on. So they need to become aware of the boundary of the hero?
I think so. Hero, you know what? It's not hero, it's yourself. It's like, you know,
Right, we are the hero.
So if you, Jeff, are coming, okay, I'll take you as an example. You're coming to the workshop, and you said that you come to meet other people. So that's your need, okay? So you come to meet other people, but are you willing to work with other people to do something? Because you came just to meet other people. I'm not sure you came to work with other people. So in order for you to be willing also to work with other people, you need to be acknowledged, and that people will understand that you're coming to meet those people. But then to talk about, okay, so what are we going to do in this space? And then you'll hear that other people came to be acknowledged because they have the loss, and they want people to hear that they're feeling pain, or they're feeling, you know, and once you heard them, it will be kind of a mutual kind of place. But Edwin was saying that we should also talk about what are we. So Jeff came to meet people. This other person came to other people to hear his pain. So, but what does it mean about the relationship and the space where Jeff, the other people, Edwin, and me are sitting? What's going on? What's the vibe? And once we're talking about it, that's those walls, these individual walls, will be kind of taken out or be open to start talking about something that is common and kind of working together. Edwin,
Okay,
okay, yeah, Jeff.
I think so. So what I'm getting is that so when people first come in, the boundary of the hero is themselves, the individual, and then as they start talking to other people, um, and starting to see what other people's needs are, the boundary of the hero starts to either break down or expand into the entire room. So then that sets the stage for people to um, be able to collaborate and actually work together during the conference. And so that's connected to the Edwin's we idea in that it kind of starts to shift like people's consciousness from the individual to the whole group. Is that close to
Uh,
what?
Kind of, because what I thought in the beginning was that, when I read this article and thinking about my experience, I thought exactly what you said. So people will share and then they'll be willing to kind of go and start working together. What I heard Edwin add, and that's why I had this boundaries, is that if we won't talk about the boundaries themselves, there won't be a genuine kind of sharing. And that Edwin feels that we need to talk about the space. And so I'm saying, okay, so maybe in the middle, between the time that Jeff, you're sharing what you need and what you're feeling, Edwin is sharing what he needs and what he's feeling, I'm sharing what I need and I'm feeling, then we should have a discussion about the actual space. And only then, once we have an understanding of each individual needs and feeling and the space, then we can move to, okay, so let's do something together.
So is it like moving on from individual needs and individual feelings to kind of trying to perceive what the collective needs are of the whole space and becoming aware of that?
Not yet. That's the third level. So in between, what I'm hearing Edwin, and Edwin will correct me if I'm wrong, is not to talk about the collective, but to talk about the space as another entity. So there is each individual, there is the collective together, but there's also the space where it's actually being done. And the space sometimes have its own vibe,
Right. And then doing the we exercise is a way to give that space a persona almost, like it's like turning the space itself into another person. So
yeah.
it kind of gives like the tools for people to be able to talk to each other about the space.
Mm.
Yeah. It's like another character that is here, and I love the idea of Edwin to acknowledge this space, and I think that only then you can move to, okay, so now that we have each one individual thing, now that we acknowledge the space, now what the hell are we going to do together?
I think I understand. So so it's not yet talking about what people are actually going to be doing collectively. It's more like just gaining an awareness of like the vibe of the space or what the space feels like.
Yeah. Yeah,
So how
I
would
mean, Edwin, you'll say if
yeah,
that's
I wonder that there's a couple different aspects. So I wonder also that we're doing sort of our own workshop here, and I wonder what is the space that we have. So that's one kind of question, like doing what we're talking about. The other is I'm looking at the vocabulary that we use as with the empathic listening. One thing I've seen is you can say, well, I'm hearing you say this. Am I hearing you correctly? And then I saw something that Carl Rogers did is he was actually saying, instead of just saying, I hear you say this, it's like he is the person just mirroring them, like, oh, I'm really struggling, and then he would respond, yeah, I'm really struggling. And
okay.
there was like a shift, and I remember doing that with Sherry, and she got so scared about that she didn't want to do it anymore because it was
Yeah,
just
I
like
would
too
be.
intimate. What?
Yeah, I'd be freaked out. Like that.
It was her. Yeah, she was like. But I did it with Liedewine. It was okay. It created a different vibe. It created a different sense of, because that me and you know that that I'm hearing you. It changed the energy of the relationship. And then there's another way of even saying that instead of like instead of saying, oh, I feel really stressed, you say, we're feeling really stressed. And then the mirror is, yeah, we're feeling really stressed. So we speak from, yeah, so there's something with how it's like our language is kind of framing a lot of the relationship, you know, like the I, the we, the form of the mirroring, and so it's something to play with.
So
It's
do you think, where would you put that, this like mirroring kind of thing, if we're talking,
I
would
would
that be
put
as
it.
part of,
Oh,
yeah?
mirroring. Yeah, where is, yeah, it's part of the mirroring. It's kind of like, maybe it is the mirroring. It's sort of the merging that happens. There's a form of merging, which, you know, the psychologists, they say don't merge. You know, you always want the I
Mm-hmm.
you relationship. So we're talking, and then other people, like empaths, they talk about their merging, and it's like terrible world because they're just picking up all these energies. So they're looking for ways of protecting themselves.
But, but what you suggested would be at the end of the mirroring exercise, and that would lead to the imaginary empathy on the space.
Well, it's more, I wonder about just exploring that kind of personally before, you know, doing it in a workshop or anything, like doing an empathy circle from the we or the mirroring to see how that
Okay.
goes, or even role playing, like, you know, we did some role playing. So there's a lot of different things to do, and I don't necessarily want to do them in the workshop because I think it would be too much. It could be too much, but
And again, it depends on what's the purpose, because
yeah.
if one person would come to get empathic exercises, so that actually would be great, because then if we're doing something different, then, you know, then this person can go back to wherever he or she works, and then use those kind of different strategy of fostering empathy. So it depends again on the purpose of what we want to do.
Well, going to the purpose, that was there was two things I did want to talk about with the purpose. Maybe we could kind of transition to that.
Yeah, because we don't
Is
have much time, so yeah, we
yeah.
should.
So so what is the purpose? One thing is it's I'm seeing kind of a difference between a workshop and a conference, and a conference is kind of bringing in all the different people to kind of network with each other, you know, maybe share their experiences, their processes. It's almost like a world. I mean, open space is a bit like. Are you familiar with the open space? Where everybody says this is what I'm about, for fostering empathy, and come to my area and hear what I have to say, and let's have a dialogue or some exercises. So it becomes kind of like a cornucopia of processes versus maybe just a simple workshop that Jeff and I did. Is, you know, we did some empathic listening, and then we took that into doing a design project, and we're kind of like just controlling the whole thing. It's just us controlling it. We're the facilitators. That's kind of it. Versus something that's more about bringing people together to bring their offerings. So it just has different structures. I mean, the safe thing is, on one hand, is just to do the process, which was already done. You know, kind of refine it a bit. But the other thing is, I'm also seeing a need for bringing people together and to start networking too, and then kind of including people. So those are just some things that I'm kind of thinking about.
And again, so it tapped back to the what's the purpose. So
yeah.
do we want people to practice empathy the way that we think they should, or do we want to open discussion and have more kind of I don't know, like a trade or like a market kind of
Yeah.
thing
Uh-huh.
of ideas that would maybe eventually combine into something, an active result.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
for
for
me,
either.
yeah. Well, I'm just going to explore it a little bit, just to get a sense of clarity, because I see benefits of both. For me, the one track is I'm just seeing that empathic listening, like, the mindfulness community has meditation as their core kind of practice and process, and I'm seeing the empathic listening sort of the core practice of the empathy work that I've been doing. I see it kind of as the most effective. So it's just like the empathic listening. I'm in distress. I call you, Jonathan. You listen to me for an hour. It kind of opens me up. I feel heard. I have a sense of a vision of, oh, I really need to get more community support for me being heard. So I have a sense of action coming out of that. So that basic process, turned around into an empathy circle as we're kind of doing that for each other. There's the empathic cafe is like the next step of, having a group of people doing that. They listen to each other, and then after, half an hour, they change tables, and you meet new people and hear them, and you practice that empathic listening. So it's a real practicing as well as getting the benefits. And then there's going into the mediation. Like, it's the core of mediation, just creating a little bit bigger container. With, okay, there's a conflict, I empathize with all the people in the conflict, I bring them together and I hold the space for them to work out their conflict, and then they take action. And then kind of the next layer on top of all that is the empathic design, using the human-centered design tools to really get all these tools for really creating even more action. So I kind of see that basic arc is kind of where but it all kind of comes down to the empathic listening is kind of the core. So kind of teaching that core in some of those steps is one purpose.
But I mean, I like this idea of combining them together. I think it makes sense to whatever would be the first and whichever the second, and maybe we have something else as like get them together at the end. But one is what you said about the practice. So yeah, to practice the empathic listening is very important, because people who are coming to open space might not be practicing too much listening, but they're more about, that's what I want to hear and that's what I can say, and whoever comes to my table is kind of preaching to the choir, and there is some listening, but I'm not sure what they're getting out of it besides, here I showed my knowledge.
Yeah.
While you're saying the empathic circles is about this practice that you want people to practice. So thinking about some kind of a combination, either to do it in separate sections or to combine them together, like maybe some kind of a rotation. So start the traditional open spaces, unconference, whatever you want to call it, and then transition at some point into people rotating and doing empathic circles, so that actually there'll be some empathic listening in this open space. And I think that would achieve those two goals that you're interested in.
Yeah, it was actually, I was thinking of starting with the empathic listening. So if there's a open space, that the empathic listening would happen within the open space too. Because I've seen, like with open space, everybody goes into their corner and then they just start dialoguing. But what if they did open space with using reflective listening?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes like kind of a core skill that can be put into kind of all these other modes. And an empathy cafe is basically World Cafe with empathic listening put in.
Yep.
So
Sounds
it's
great.
Yeah, so it's this, and we only have, so many hours. So I don't know how, I don't know how much we can really do too. So
I
I
think
think sorry.
no,
Oh,
just go ahead.
um, one of the biggest questions I have right now in terms of the purpose of the conference or the workshop is whether the purpose is for the participants to create something together at the end, like collaborate and actually try to
oh,
create something like a project, or using the empathic design process that you were talking about, Edwin, or is the purpose more for the participants to just gain a deeper understanding and appreciation for what empathy is through like experiential activities, and then for them to just take their understanding back to where they came from, or or is it more like, is the focus more on the first one where they kind of collaborate and try to create something together during the conference or the workshop?
yeah. So I'm hearing that you're seeing two parts. Is that the participants doing empathic design and on a shared project, or is it just getting a deeper sense of empathy, some practice, and then they take it home?
Yeah, because it seems like it would kind of affect what the focus is on, like considering the amount of hours that we have total. Like if we were to do more of the first one, then we would probably do empathic listening and practice that and go through that, and then move to the design portion of it, like you said, Edwin, in your arc. But then if we were to focus more on just getting a really deep understanding of empathy itself, then we can focus more of the hours on really digging deep into the empathic listening process, and um, do more like reflections on what the empathic listening was like and stuff like that. So that's what I'm wondering about.
Hmm.
I like the idea of doing something. Um, I wonder what it should be because that's very tricky. If we're talking about 5 hours, and we want to get them through a process, what would they do? Because I love project-based learning. I think it's the best way to learn, just to sit and talk. In general, um, won't advance their understanding of new knowledge or new experiences. So working on a project, I love it. Now I think, okay, so what should be the project?
Yeah, that's my sense too. Is the project part, the shared project is. I mean, I was kind of opening it up, the whole can of worms, to just kind of explore all the parts. And I'm thinking for the whole thing, it could take like 3-4 day conference would be really good at some point to do all the different parts like that. But we only have, and I think that would be really exciting because real action seems to come after 3 days, is my sense of having looked at a
Mm.
lot of these conferences. So that's something to think about. But if we have only one day, what is the most productive? And for me, it's that shared. It's the workshop that Jeff and I did, and that was the big question. Was we had the project, but it was everybody's individual, redesigning everyone's individual needs for empathy, and people came up with all kinds, like somebody needed a house, where they could live and feel at home, so the person designed a house. Somebody else felt Berkeley was very cold and alienating, so somebody redesigned, they created a thing about Berkeley, redesigning Berkeley, and so there was all kinds of, and somebody else needed a website, so somebody created a website outline for them. So, but there was all these separate kind of projects, and my sense is we needed one shared focus where everybody was bringing their perspective on this shared focus, so we'd have a shared project. So I was kind of looking at what would be one topic, one area that everybody could design for. And even one topic could be, how do we design an empathy workshop? I mean, how do we design an empathy conference? So everybody would be designing that shared conference, for example? Or how do we create an empathic hub? Redesign the hub to be more empathic. So that's, again, kind of a shared experience. So it's something about that challenge is what I was kind of looking for, something where everybody's bringing their different perspectives on that one point.
Yeah, but it's very tricky for them to create in 5 hours to create like a conference that later on. So if you have 20 participants, do you want 20 participants to create a conference together?
It's more the practice of it, the shared practice of it.
But then it should have a real outcome. I know for myself, if I would come and I say, okay, I'm just practicing for the practice, that's always get me disengaged totally.
Mm-hmm.
And I never collaborate on something that is just for a demo or just for the practice of it.
Yeah.
But that's my,
You're wanting at the end of this time that we've actually created something that's useful and productive. And how do we create that thing? The thing is something like that might take a couple iterations, like the design project 0, which we did from the Stanford. It's more of a practice. It was geared. You're redesigning the wallet or the gift giving experience, and you do it, and that's kind of like the end of it, and you probably don't see it ever again.
This is kind of just like an idea that popped into my head, but what if it's something like, so they go through all these activities where they gain a better understanding of empathy and what empathic listening feels like. What if it's like designing more activities that would like raise the level of empathy between people, and then at the end of the conference everyone tries out those activities together that they created, like they can collaborate. I'm not sure how you're thinking of it, but if it would be like done like in partners again, like we did in the last workshop, but people can partner up and try to create their own like new activity that they can do together, like in the room, like during the conference, and then at the end of it, it's kind of like it can be kind of like that market idea that I think someone said before, where people can just go to each other and just share what activity they created and try it out together, and see how that compares to empathic listening and stuff like that.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is we start off doing some empathic exercises. So they've experienced some empathic exercise. Then it's, okay, now redesign an empathic exercise for your partner, and then you redesign it, and then you actually do it for your partner. Is that?
Yeah, and then not just for the partner, but for all the other participants, like in the workshop, like everyone just tries out each other's activities. But yeah, that's just.
Okay. So it's a little bit like the open space that once you create this other activity, that anybody can come and take your activity, do your activity.
Yeah, yeah, that's just one idea that just came in, but I don't know if we're looking for something that's more like bigger, like creating a conference or something like that. But
well, that was a bit of my idea for the original conference that we did, and I'm not sure how it transformed. Is I thought in the morning we would do empathic listening and empathy circles, which we did, and then it was like, we'll redesign this experience now for your partner to make it, more empathic. And that was like the original idea that I had, which is very similar to this, but then somehow it became redesign the empathic experience in general of your partner. Do you remember that, Jeff? Or what happened?
I remember. Yeah, I think you're talking about like that we wanted the participants to create like more like tangible processes, I guess, to add on to the
Yeah.
empathic listening, but then what ended up happening was it just became more of like a personalized project between the partners that when it was like shared with the whole group, it wasn't really like feel like it was like a shared
Yeah.
project. It became more like each partner had their own personalized thing, and then they announced it, and then that was it.
Yeah. So was that our intention, or did we change the intention? I don't remember, because the intention, it felt kind of dissatisfying to me because everybody was just off on their own, like, talking about their house or Berkeley or whatever. It wasn't, it didn't seem to have a shared core to it. It was like, oh, I did talk with someone else who said, well, the thing to do is to actually have people do that were here where they are, but then you need another couple iterations to bring all those into a shared vision, because all those things that people are needing, you're kind of tapping into their individual needs and designing for those, but somehow a couple more iterations to bring those all together into a shared iteration, and then another iteration where everybody kind of actually does the action, but that would be quite time consuming.
Are you there?
Yeah.
So again, I'm thinking like this balance. It comes back to what we said in the beginning, the balance between the individual and the kind of community, and what kind of vibe you're gonna set in the beginning of this conference or workshop. So Edwin, I know you want to create a community, and I would say I think eventually to make it a successful event needs to be really connected to what Edwin you want. And now hearing you, Jeff, also saying that you want to know much better the people you are living with in the community, and you're living in the same community. I'm saying, why not putting that would be the target audience, and that would be the purpose of this workshop, not trying to conquer the world, and on the other side, not getting people to practice your own empathy and try to do this kind of empathic practices just for yourself, but combining into, you want to create an empathic community in Berkeley, and even say maybe a neighborhood, and stating that very in the promotional materials and everything. That's the purpose of the workshop. And then the work that you're doing during the day is to listen to those community members talking about what the community or what their individual needs are, and then thinking of, okay, so how can we build a sustainable empathic community? So maybe it's to think about the space for the next gathering, or thinking about recruitment, or even have subcommittees or subgroups that each one will talk about the different ways about how to create this kind of. Because if Jeff and Edwin, you don't have a very specific purpose that is clear to everybody, it won't work. So I don't know what you think about it.
I really like what you said. I think the framing really changes everything. And when I'm reflecting back on the first workshop that we did, Edwin, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like our frame for the workshop wasn't as clear as um, what was just what was just articulated, like creating a more sustainable empathic community. Um, Ours was more like, how can we create a more empathic experience, um, a more empathic listening experience in the first workshop, and also the first empathic listening section of the workshop was also pretty unstructured. I think we asked like really general questions as like the prompts for the empathic listening sessions, and that might have like contributed to how unfocused it felt like when we moved on to the design portion of it. But But I think if we frame the entire workshop with that specific purpose, and that we have more pointed questions, I guess, during the empathic listening part, that might help create more of a focus during the project part.
I'm just writing these down. So what I was hearing there is that the intention is to create a sustainable empathic community, and then that we need to really be clear on what our intention is and the framing of that intention, and then structure everything towards that, so that like our questions in the empathy circle is geared towards that instead of being unstructured, and that we're wanting to create a sustainable empathic community in, I guess, the East Bay, or
Yeah,
is that
whatever
kind
sounds like.
that's what you're hearing? That's what we're talking about, or what I'm kind of looking at? Yeah, having that.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it.
what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that that's what both of you are really interested in. Now, you do have the global thinking and that people should have, but I think it should be a modest, thing. Though creating an empathic community is not that modest, but something that is doable, and getting people to come who are really devoted to what you want. Because if you'll get somebody who is just interested in learning empathic practices because he's working in LA and he's just going to be there, it won't really help, and you'll get what you got in the last workshop, that this person will share this empathic kind of practices, but nobody will really kind of be connected.
Stick with it, yeah.
Yeah. So, again, I don't know if it sounds like, okay, if that's what you...
Yeah, I think that's what I'm wanting. That's been my frustration, is the community doesn't seem to be forming, and it's kind of like demoralizing for me.
Yeah, that actually, I actually really like this prompt too. Of where is it again? Like creating a sustainable empathic community in the East Bay. I think that gets to the core of what I wanted to. And it also kind of goes back to our earlier conversation about the mixing of the relationship between the individual and collective needs, or I forgot what it was, but the individualist worldview and the relational worldview. If we make it localized, and if everyone who comes to the conference are from a common community of the Bay Area, then I think there's a lot that we can play around with in the entire workshop, like the connection between the individual and the more relational and collective needs, I guess.
So I was hearing there is that you like the creating a sustainable empathic community, and then the individual and the relational needs kind of get addressed within that.
Yeah, because it's localized, and it's where it's like because the focus is on the common community of the Bay Area.
So because it's localized, that it creates a common shared vision, or that has.
I guess it's like there's more of an opportunity for us to kind of play around with the relationship between the individualist and the relational worldviews. Because like if everyone's coming from the same community, then the individual needs and the communal needs are there's more of like a closer tie between the two. I feel like than if it was more of like a generalized thing. And you know, like someone if someone from LA were to come, just I think it would change the dynamic of the whole workshop.
So it's kind of like creating community going forward. So there's a real tangible sense that we're creating something together, and it's the community, and we have it here, and we're kind of going to be taking that forward. So it's like it's sort of that's the project part, maybe that the tangible project that Jonathan's talking about. Like you want to do a project, you want something tangible that comes out of it, and that community is the tangible project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Because that's really what I'm looking for, is that tangible community. So it's really, yeah, so that speaks to that.
Okay.
For me.
So I need to leave, but I wanted to see, you know, quickly to kind of plan. So if that's the focus and we agree on that, I think it will be easier, like next week, to start working on the actual structure. And I love the idea, Edwin, that you said before, that you want to practice those things before you want to do it there. And we can do it either online, or you can do like sessions, I don't know, there at the Bay with people to see, you know, if the imaginative empathy with the space works, and how does it feel, and is it awkward, or it's actually beneficial. And so I love this idea. But I think we need to structure, so maybe next time will be more about structuring how it should be now that we have the purpose. We talked about, you know, the transactional, the individual versus the communal, the relational. I don't know, what do you think, both of you?
Yeah, it works for me. Kind of next week we structure. I'm going to be working on it, you know, through the whole week too. So I guess there's what can we do in between as well to.
Yeah, I also agree that I think that would be a good next step to take. And maybe what we can do in the meantime, if we have the time, is to kind of brainstorm on our own how we think the structure should be to support this main focus we just created, and then when we actually meet, we can all share our processes and see if we can combine stuff, or see what each other's ideas are.
Okay, so yeah, brainstorm structures works for me. I'm going to be. Jonathan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we should do. I mean, you know, we should brainstorm and think and see how and what. Again, I don't know how much work should we do by ourselves. I think the actual dialogue that we're doing and the brainstorming, as Jeff was saying, that's very stimulating idea of, you know, structuring the things suddenly. Oh yeah, and we should add that, and oh, once you say that, actually entailing this story, I'm thinking of adding that. So I would stick to that. But you know, if you have some things that you think that we should do during the week.
Well, how about we come up with, if we have some ideas, then we bring them into the discussion. It just becomes a conversation starter for that. I'm hearing you're looking at the emergent quality of this, that we're doing it through dialogue.
Yeah,
but
I love that. I think it's...
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I'm going to be at Harbin next week, going to the hot springs for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So
nice.
Be relaxing there.
So wait a minute, you'll come back to the weekend? You're doing?
Yeah, I'm back on the 6th.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
All right.
So,
very good. I'll stop the broadcast.